afternoon, and thank you very much, Dr. Sahu. Thank you very much for partnering with COAI and IMC. We had a great deal of support from him, especially for the CIO community, and we had a particular session devoted to just the CIO fraternity, sorority at IMC. I think IMC is going to expand considerably. We are almost the largest in Southeast Asia. We have overtaken Shanghai, which has been there for 8 years. In the span of 3 years, we have a larger footprint and larger attendance and larger impact than GSMA's China-Shanghai event. So I think in our region, we are making IMC the premier must-attend technology event of the year. So I encourage all of our participants here, VAR participants and providers, to be a part of that. That ecosystem is tremendous. It, of course, includes all of the operators, includes the OEMs, includes those folks who are providing software. Just go online and check the website, and you'll see the scope and scale. This year, we are going to continue to expand, and the theme is about intelligent connectivity. And so you're going to see things like connected automobiles, connected healthcare products, connected educational situations and applications. So just plenty of opportunities to expand. We're going to be looking at the handset ecosystem as that develops. Obviously, security. Security has become a big market in India, billions of US dollars at stake. We're going to be looking at involving that whole ecosystem again. So again, my plea and pitch to all of you is please keep an eye out for IMC 2020. Mid-October, we'll be here in Delhi. And so we will be announcing the venue as well. We're looking at a couple of venues right now. But mid-October, again, Southeast Asia's largest event, devoted to technology, connectivity, and what's going to come ahead. And lots of commercial arrangements, by the way. I think one of the takeaways is the abundance of opportunities for commercial deals to be done. Just as an example, we had just among 5 or 6 major players, over $1 billion US of committed contracts take place in our IMC event. Why? Because all of the OEMs are there, our operators are there at the CEO, CTO, CMO, CIO level. This is the senior most decision makers at a single location, and you want to talk to them, we make sure that you get an opportunity. We are also there with the key government decision makers. We had the Minister of the Department of Telecommunications, Mr. Prasad. We had the Secretary of DOT. We had the Secretary of MIET. We had the Secretary of DST. Senior government bureaucrats who were there and willing to meet with folks who needed to get business done in India. You may spend a year trying to get through the door of some of these folks, but you come to IMC, you get almost an assured invitation to meet with them, and we facilitate that. So again, that's all about IMC. Let me just sort of go very quickly to what I'd like to say about VAR and the opportunities. Of course, COAI represents all the mobile operators as well as our associate members, folks like Microsoft, Qualcomm, Ericsson, Nokia, Huawei, Cisco, on and on, all of those who play. We are happy to consider any of those folks who are interested in becoming part of our association. Gives you access to all of these folks, because increasingly we realize that no single person can give end-to-end connectivity products and services that consumers are looking for. So, of course, what we've been in the headlines of is the viability and sustainability of the industry. I've always said that if you want to live and operate in India, you better have a cast iron stomach. All right, because we will have our ups and we will have our downs, but in the long term, we expect to be successful and profitable. So our industry has been through these cyclical ups and downs. We expect and hope that the government will take cognizance of the dire straits of the industry at present, and there are venues right now being put in place by the government to look at the appropriate relief to the industry. So we'll put that distraction to the side and talk about where the industry potentially has the opportunities of going forward if we can fix our present problems. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind that it is no longer same old, as we say. The whole progression as we move from 4G to 4G plus to 5G is a transformational, non-linear growth that we see. And what I mean by that is that when we are looking at projections and revenue growth and experiences and expectations and products and services, no longer looking at linear projections saying, this is what happened, this is what we did, and so therefore we can expect this kind of linear progression is no longer an apt model. We are in an extreme state of disruption and disappointment, as well as opportunities that are emerging. And what I mean by that is that as a result of 5G coming into play, parts of which are already beginning to happen in our 4G networks, is the fact that our transformation includes the whole way in which our networks are designed. And so folks who are expecting to play on our mobile platforms have got to understand the transformation that is happening in our networks as we begin to disaggregate the various components of our networks, and you will possibly see more players coming in on the various layers of our network. So that is something that you will have to become ready for in terms of your product. Which layer are you going to be integrating with? Which layer are you going to be playing with? And who are the partners in that particular layer? It's no longer just one monolithic company that you can go to in either mobility or elsewhere and say, I have a product, I have a service, I have an app, help me get it to market. You're going to have to understand all of the various component pieces of our networks that have to work together, interoperable, and play together in terms of getting the service out to the end consumer. That is clearly one of the things that is happening in terms of 5G. We talk about network slicing. Network slicing is precisely this, that the networks get increasingly disaggregated, different players begin to start playing in the various layers, and as a result, the go-to-market opportunities for operators and VAR players and others expands exponentially. This is clear. What we are seeing as a result of 4G and 5G is that mobility now plays in all of the segments of the supply chain. This is transformational because digitalization has impacted just about every industry. And as increasingly industries begin to now adopt digitization, they find that mobile networks are the choice of consumers. Today, if you are a startup or if you are a company looking for investments from angel investors or other investors, the first question that they usually ask is, how do you play in the mobility space? If you don't play in the mobility space, there's not a whole lot of interest right now, because consumers recognize that the mobility space is the preferred access medium for consumers. So those of you who are already playing in that space, good news. And now be ready to begin to start asking the question, how does 5G impact our offering and our applications and how we go forward? Now, one of the things that value-added service providers have consistently have to deal with is revenue share. That's the big issue, right? You're obviously having to negotiate these deals in terms of having to ride on a network and then obviously having to have the ability to share. Why? Because you are obviously not connected with the end consumer. You have to rely on collection methodologies and marketing methodologies and elsewhere, and that causes you to have to rely. I think that paradigm is going to change because of the way we market today using digital technologies, social media that is predominantly digital oriented. So the opportunities that you have to directly sell into the end consumer and then work that in terms of a relationship with a network provider becomes all that more compelling. So if you can show, much as today WhatsApp, right? WhatsApp obviously delivers value to the end consumer. They have marketed it. They have become very valuable. There's not an operator in the world that will not want to have an arrangement with WhatsApp in order to integrate it into their offering. So this is something that I give you an example for in terms of going forward. This is the disruptive nature of what is going to happen. So some of the things to watch out for and to keep on top of mind
So one of the things that is going to happen is the distinction between what I call structured data and unstructured data.
If all data is going to become the means of monetized value, accessing this, manipulating it, offering it to consumers, and trying to extract value is going to become prime. And so this distinction between structured and unstructured and being able to pull it together into a centralized database and then apply algorithms, be it artificial intelligence or elsewhere or elsewhat, right? The end result is to ask the question, how much data can I aggregate in order to make reasonable inferences and predictions? Because no longer are customers willing to live with historic information. No longer are they even willing to live with real-time information. They are looking for predictive information. Taking all of this information together, aggregating it, and obviously we know that the more data you have access to, the better off is the predictive ability of your application, of your software. This is going to become increasingly critical, and this is why partnering in terms of being able to aggregate information from multiple sources, work on that, and to able to offer the consumer predictive analysis, predictive decision making. Why? Because there's far too much data being generated for the average consumer to intelligently interact and deal with this. So clearly, this is going to be one of the areas that you're going to have to look at. Second thing, because of the vernacular situation that you have in India, we have something like 26 languages, not counting all the vernaculars that are in place. Voice to text, text to voice is going to become an incredibly must-have application. The interfaces are going to be driven by that only because increasingly this is going to be the preferred medium of interface. Now let me give you a statistics. When we had SMS or messaging, right, off of our feature phones, we found that only 30% of the customers used messaging. Why? Because the keyboard was not configured for vernacular, and nor was it easy to interface. But once smartphones came into play, and you had keyboards that could be configured for vernacular, Hindi and other languages, and the interface became easier, we saw a takeoff in terms of the utilization of things like WhatsApp and other messaging services on our platforms. So the point is, please focus on the vernacular. Please focus on how the customer accesses that. The preferred access is a voice access methodology and a means, and how that is used is critical in terms of your application or your service. So please keep that in mind. The other area that we are going to be increasingly concerned about is what I call the trust factor in terms of security and privacy. As you know, the Indian government, perhaps in the winter session of Parliament or later, will put up the Indian Data Privacy Act. This will be a critical factor in determining what happens to the data that is going through your service, your application, or whatever. All right, so this is going to be a matter that you must focus on, seeing how this is going to be defined in terms of personal data, critical data, where it can be operated on, where the boundaries exist, where the boundaries are limited, whether it's in country, out of country, how it integrates in with American data and European data based on those protocols and requirements. All of this is going to be very, very critical. So please stay tuned and in touch in terms of what is happening in terms of the development of the National Data Protection Act. Out of this will come the understanding of what is the requirements for security, both from a customer perspective and as well as from a business perspective. Igor is here, but let me do a little pitch for him. It's unpaid. But let me ask you, how many folks of you have a smartphone? You put up your hand. How many of you have a smartphone? Put up your hand, yeah. Just about 100%. How many of you have antivirus software or a firewall on your smartphone? 10%. You have in your hands some of the most advanced computing horsepower in your hands, right? And about 10% or 15% of you don't have any protection in terms of access to your smartphone, which is an advanced computer. Now, this goes on in spades in terms of World Mobile Congress. World Mobile Congress, 100,000 paid delegates turning up in Barcelona. They showed you a company sitting there, all right, able to access your data because everybody was on Wi-Fi. Just about every delegate, as soon as they came on-prem, had hooked onto the Mobile World Congress Wi-Fi system without any type of security. And there they were sitting there being able, and they showed you real time how much of your private data was being accessible to these folks. So please, all right, simple things like this. Security is becoming a major issue in India, will become a major issue, will continue to be a major issue both from business to consumer, from the consumer as well as the enterprise end. 2 more points and I'll conclude. 1, if you've got a VAR system, if you've got an application, if you've got a service, please understand that if you're going to start playing in an integrated fashion with our mobile operators, you will have to begin to start certifying your product for security. There are security agencies in India, Termcell being one of them, various other certifying agencies, BIS and elsewhere. Increasingly, this will be a gate and a hurdle that you will have to pass before you will be allowed to integrate into our networks. Safe to connect will be a critical parameter. You will have to be able to provide certification that it complies with the relevant standards, with the relevant parameters before you can come in. So please get ready to do this. The government is already started the labs in India whereby you will have to submit your application or your product. So this is something that is going to come there. It has already happened. OEMs are already facing this. Increasingly, this is going to be a matter that will have to be addressed from the security perspective. Please be ready to be able, no matter how high your encryption, and increasingly because of security reasons, you will begin to start encrypting data, you will have to provide those keys to the government. The government will insist, as it has done with WhatsApp, as it has done in other situations with Google and Facebook, in terms of saying security will require you to begin to start working with legal enforcement issues and accessibility. So this is something that will be almost demanded when you start playing with the operators, because again, this will be a requirement of our license condition. So these are matters that I present to you for your consideration. There's plenty of opportunity, but it is going to have to be done with partnership. Our networks are changing. Security is emerging as a big concern. Privacy is emerging as a big concern. Trust with the consumer is key and important. You must spend money in terms of ensuring that the consumer trusts your product, because we are going to go there. Vernacular is important. The interface, voice to text, text to voice is increasingly important, and being able to integrate across a disaggregated network where cloud computing is going to emerge and AI is going to become standard, IoT is going to start exploding. All of these provide tremendous amounts of opportunity, tremendous amounts of revenue opportunities, but also caveats would say, please be ready. Good luck. Jai Hind. Thank you.